Welcome, everyone. This is World Unity Way, and this is my beloved sister, Ingrid. Welcome, sister.
Hey, thanks so much, Shonda. I am so excited to introduce you to David. And David Cobb is our presenter, and he is going to be sharing with us about the solidarity economy. And as we are looking at the changes that we are looking at, this new beginning, this new emerging that we are working in together and playing in together and exploring in together. Um, he's got some great ways for us to explore. I can't wait to hear more. Let me just read real quick for those of you who are watching on Facebook and maybe haven't gone to www.worldunityweek.org to find out all the events that are happening this week. And right now it says for today's session, David Cobb will facilitate a participatory session. So even if you are not actually here in the room to go into the breakout rooms, if you are participating in the live stream chat that we will be trying to watch from directly from the World Unity Week page, and you have questions, you want to participate, please feel free to do so. And we are going to explore the question, what if our economy was designed to meet human needs while respecting ecological limits? This interactive workshop introduces the solidarity economy, a growing movement rooted in cooperation, democracy, mutual aid, and community ownership. Explore practical, concrete alternatives that are already happening: mutual aid networks, worker-owned cooperatives, community land trusts, public banking, participatory budgeting, universal basic income that build shared prosperity, strengthen communities, and support a just, sustainable future. So if this sounds exciting, stay tuned. Thanks, David.
Well, thank you, Ingrid. And I want to start by saying thank you to the World Unity Week for this opportunity. I also want to lift up Jack Strasberg, who is the one who brought this opportunity to me and encouraged me to make this application and for an offering. And this really is an offering, y'all. And I'm going to start by saying this. I'm a lawyer by training, but I am a revolutionary by avocation. But don't get alarmed. I'm a peaceful revolutionary, but I really am a revolutionary because I believe that we need to completely restructure this society. And the reason I always start by acknowledging that I'm a revolutionary is for really two very related but profound reasons. The first, because it's true, because I do believe that our current systems are fundamentally racist, they're fundamentally sexist, they're fundamentally based on exploitation, oppression, and domination. And we need to return to what our ancestors lived, which is a right relationship not only with one another, but balance with Mother Earth. I came in at the very end of the last session, but I really appreciated the comments about not just respecting, but really celebrating both the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine, right? The life affirming world that existed before the enclosure movement, before capitalism, before heteropatriarchy. This is our birthright, y'all. So I say that I'm a revolutionary because it's true. And the second profound reason that I always start opportunities to speak by acknowledging that I'm a revolutionary is because I'm trying to give other people the permission to say so as well. Because almost everybody I have real talk with recognizes that our current systems are fundamentally destroying Mother Earth faster than she can replenish herself. But the culture itself constantly tries to, as my former friend Daniel Quinn wrote, Mother Culture whispers in our ear to try to tell us that we should not say that out loud, that others will mock or ridicule us. So the point I'm making, y'all, is I really wanted to acknowledge that even as a lawyer, I'm trying to encourage us all in this session to ask not what is possible, but what do we actually need? And with that, As a lawyer, I've sued corporate polluters. I've lobbied elected officials. I've run for office myself. I was the candidate for Attorney General in Texas, pledging to use that office to revoke corporate charters of corporations that were routinely violating health, safety, environmental protection laws. I ran for president of the United States on the Green Party ticket. I also worked on Jesse Jackson's campaigns in 84 and 88, Jerry Brown's campaigns in 92. The point is, y'all, I believe that I've tried all of the tools and still believe that we must use all of the tools. So, what I'm getting at is, as I introduce this idea of the solidarity economy, I want us to ask what it is that we're actually talking about. And Ingrid, I'm wondering if you could take over and share the slide deck that we can just walk over. And I'm going to ask Ingrid and others if there are questions that come up in the chat or on Facebook, just interrupt me and we'll stop and process it in real time. I really do want this to be as participatory as possible. So with that, I'll ask if we can open that slide deck.
And I'm going to ask for somebody to help me with the stream keeping on the website, because I just realized I'm going to be blocking the screen by having the screen share. So to be checking the website is going to be a challenge. So somebody would check the live stream feed in World Unity Week for any questions. I would be greatly appreciative. Thank you.
And Ingrid, I will say that you are at the very end. So if you could go to the beginning of the deck.
Live stream is fine, Ingrid.
Okay, so this is a conversation about home and the economy and the world that we deserve. That what we're looking at is a small visual representation. Of course, you see Mother Earth, but also Father Sky, again, picking up the divine feminine and the divine masculine. Next slide, please, Ingrid. And so I'm going to start by actually asking, and if it's not too much trouble, we can come back. The question is, what does the word economy mean? And I'm going to invite us to really get together. And if we can get back into, if we can stop sharing so that we can all see each other, that would be ideal. If that's not too much trouble, not just me, but all of us.
Not at all. That's great. And we usually have the mics muted. So instead, do you want just people to jump in, or
Yeah,
do you
just
want people
open
to
it
raise
up
their
and let's just
hands?
have a
Or okay.
conversation. I trust that people who are self-selecting to come to World Unity Week know how to share space together. And if necessary, I'll lovingly make sure that we do all share space. But if we could bring us all back together on the screen, I'd love to see the Brady Bunch style display of all of the faces and voices. And we can say, it really is a question. What does the word economy mean?
Are you trying to like break down the words? So like eco, so economy, so it's like ecology, eco something like that.
Yes, that's exactly what I was looking for. So eco,
Eco.
anyone else? It's an open question. It's not a trick question, but it is an open question.
I mean, we have to figure out what's the well, my first language is Hungarian, so I'm just trying to think from that. But if you're asking
I'll
about
give
the
you a hint.
word origin,
Not to do with home?
It
like
does, Juliet.
eco.
Thank you. That's exactly right. It's Greek,
It's
Nora,
Greek.
and you were on the right track by asking
Okay.
that. And when you break it down, economy from Attic Greek really is eco, which is the
Eco.
home. It's like, so we
Home.
think about ecology or ecosystem, but in Attic Greek,
Home.
eco really was the home. And or was home, and then nomi, N-O-M-I-E, in Attic Greek was management and specifically
Oh,
or stewardship. So
nice.
really, y'all, at its
But
core, the idea of the economy is how are we managing or stewarding our home?
an eco
And
can mean environmentally friendly as well. So
thank you. Say more about that, please. That's an astute observation.
just and friendly to the environment, but the environment, of course, is us as human beings as well as the whole planet, our Mother Earth. So I'm just adding to the pot here, David.
Thank you. And I apologize if I mispronounced, but Amashar?
Omashar, yes.
Amashar. I love that that contribution and that offering because it depends on how expansive we want to be. Yes? Right. And so I love what you've invited us into doing is thinking about our home is all of Mother Earth. And if we were actually talking about stewarding or quote, managing Mother Earth, we would have to ask ourselves, how are we doing as we are in the sixth great extinction? Like, there's no doubt that the current economic system has done an amazing job of creating things. But how are we doing as it comes to actually moving into what the future of our children, our grandchildren, and as the indigenous ask us thinking to think about the seventh generation. And I'll be very transparent. I'm mortified when I think about seven generations into the future, given the speed at which we are destroying and commodifying Mother Earth. Ingrid, if we can go back to the slide deck now.
May I add a little bit?
Oh,
Uh,
yes, please.
little what what is really talking about that resource flow?
Say more about that.
But as if the economy is kind of, like we all have different resources. Um, how can we, but because it's unique to each of us, whether it's, geographically or whether it's personally, and because we are relational, if we are just alone, we can't be independent of doing everything on our own. So somehow we needed to share the resources and make it flow. And so then everybody got all.
I love it. Thank you, Joan, for that. I think that I love how you integrated both the idea of resources, but also flow and the collective. Because at least in the Western culture, we've been taught to lift up the idea of the individual. And of course, the individual is critical. We are individuals, but we don't exist unless we are actually part of a larger ecosystem. There is nothing worthwhile about the individual alone, separate and apart from other humans. And deeper still, as Omashar encouraged us to think about our ecosystem, right? Because I want to, again, Ingrid, if we could come back. Oh, Matt has a hand raised.
Oh, kia ora.
Sorry about
Uh,
that. That was me.
Ka pai. Sorry, just was it Joan? Talking about resources. The word here in Aotearoa for guardian is kaitiaki, and when you break it down, tiaki means to care for, and the word kai, which is food, is broken down. Ka is fire, and I is the fuel for. So it's a fuel for the fire, which means resources. So yeah, it's looking after our resources. That's our kaupapa. And just in support of what Joan said, Madiora, from down here in the southern hemisphere, Madiora.
Thank you, Matt, for that amazing contribution. And I really want to lift up that kind of indigenous perspective and that indigenous worldview, because one of the things that I have I have such great appreciation to some of the indigenous elders who I consider friends, mentors, and teachers, was helping me to rethink They said, you know, David, we don't think about managing resources. That's not the language that we would use in Solatluk, the Wiyot's traditional language. The best way to translate it in English would be stewardship. But even that stewardship does not quite cover it because stewardship applies some like there is the superior shepherd who's looking out over the underlings. What they say is in Solatluk, we have a way to describe reciprocal relationships and responsibilities. And humans have responsibilities. They have, it's not rights, it's responsibilities that we have to be properly and fully human. Matt, just as they say here in the Pacific Northwest of the United States, they say grizzly bears have responsibilities. The salmon have responsibilities. The redwood trees have responsibilities. And to me, that kind of understanding what the proper reciprocal relationship is to Mother Earth, because everybody, all life is supposed to be able to eat. All life is supposed to be able to reproduce. All of life itself has an inherent right to be and to be a fully expressive version of itself. And I will say this, what I'm trying to set us up for is to ask the question, is our current political, economic, global system reflective of that world that we want to live in? And I know that for people who are coming to something called World Unity Week, we know the answer is no. So with that, Ingrid, could we go back to the slide deck? Again, I'm so great. And we're going to go back and forth like this because I really do want to make this participatory. So what does economy mean? Next slide. Why? It means the management of the home. The Greek of the Greek root of economy, oikos is home, nomos is management. So really the question is, how do we collectively manage our shared home? And so to me, I think that conversation, even as we have begun to just ask the question, we've gotten into the depth of the conversation. And I want to point out that, and Devane, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, in the chat has made this observation. We have chores and didn't do them. Everything is here that we need. And that's the point, y'all. I'm going to make this assertion that it is our birthright as human beings that we are supposed to be living a life where from the moment that we open our eyes, we are filled with the acknowledgement of the sacred connectedness of all of life, that we are part of that, and that we are in a web. And that's what we should be feeling every moment. And that birthright has been stolen from us. And whether you come at that knowledge from a deeply feminist, eco-spiritual perspective, or you come at that from a hard science Western perspective, what science, both traditional ecological knowledge and hard Western science teaches us is that it's all connected. Next slide. So, what do you think of when you think of home? And now let's just sort of go back and do the same part. Like when you think of home, we've already kind of gotten into this, and I want to acknowledge that we've already started this because this group has already, how to say, you have intuited exactly where this conversation was going to go. But if we could come back together, let's continue that conversation around home. Do we just mean our little house? Do we mean something more expansive? For you, when you think about home, what do you think about? Matt? I see your hand.
Am I muted?
No, you're here.
Oh, goodbye. Oh, so just so the word for home is kai nga, kai, same word. It's in there, which is the art nga at the end of it is like the art and skill of kai, food, and the food is ka, fire, and the e is fuel for the fire. So it's fuel, resources, guardianship. Yeah, so it's just a literal answer to your question. Kai nga.
I love it. I love it. And what Matt is bringing up for me is what some of the folks that I work with, Indigenous folks, call three-dimensional epistemological knowledge, right? Like that there is an indigenous worldview, there's also a science, a Western science, and that these are not contradictory, but they're different ways of understanding the world, right? And we actually get almost a three-dimensional epistemology if we take an ecological, traditional ecological knowledge of the indigenous and the Western science, because like they're different tools, they're different prisms, and different tools can do different things. But if we use them, then what we come to is exactly as Devane says in the chat, our planet is our home. Curious if anybody else has anything that they want to share or add to the conversation. And I see Ingrid has raised her hand.
I think it's interesting in like I grew up between multiple places. And so I had divorced parents. My mom was in the north, my dad was in the south. I was all over the place. And there were very different environments. Also, family structures have changed so much. So some people have this warm sense of rootedness, safety, really like home is a safe place. And some people have an impression that home is like this really unstable, kind of chaotic thing. And so it's a very interesting, there's maybe the desire for home to feel a certain way, but not a real lived experience of that.
So thank you for that, Ingrid, and for the courage to bring that into the space. Because the reality is that for many people, especially in the modern age, home is not, their memory is not a home as a safe, loving, nurturing place. But I will argue again, that is our birthright. We are supposed to feel that way. And I really do believe that our social, political, and economic institutions that have gotten into this power over domination mindset spills over into parenting. It spills over into all of our personal relationships. And I'm just going to say this, y'all, as a recovering alcoholic of 35 years of sobriety, we're all damaged. Like the reality is this current power over dominator extractive society has damaged us all. Some of us are more resilient. Some of us are more sensitive to it. Some of us have gotten luckier. Some of us have gotten unlucky. But none of us have remained unscathed. Like all of us are having to deal with some level of trauma that the systems create. And this is the point that I'm trying to really make. These are systems, right? It's not is one individual good or bad. Obviously, we want people to be as good as they can be. But I guess what I'm getting at, Ingrid, is I don't believe that human beings are fundamentally angelic, nor do I believe that human beings are fundamentally demonic. I think that human beings, 95% of us, basically do what we're incentivized to do. We sort of replicate what we're taught. Now there is, and the science is very clear, there is about 1% that are sociopaths, that they just do not have the empathy gene for whatever. And I genuinely feel sorry for such people, but they don't seem to have that empathy gene, right? But most of us will do what we're incentivized to do, right? And of course, there are Gandhis, there are Jesus, there are other examples, right? But those are on the far extremes. Most of us do what we're incentivized to do. And the point I'm making when we get to this current economy, we are incentivizing the wrong things. We are incentivizing extraction. We're incentivizing oppression. We're incentivizing a power over, and you have to exploit, extract, or otherwise outcompete somebody. And I don't believe, and we in the solidarity economy don't believe that that's the natural state of being. So I see, let's see. Oh, back to the chat. Monkey see, monkey do. This is our circus, and those are our monkeys. Karen says it's hard for us to really be human in the way we are being human. So very true. And this is the point, Karen. The U.S. Solidarity Economy Network is a truly invitation to imagine getting back to an economic system in the modern era to the to the worldview that our indigenous worldview. And remember, we're all descending from indigenous people, right? That is our birthright. So Ingrid, if we can go back to the deck. Thank you. So let's go to the next slide now. Now we're going to get a little more specific. When I say capitalism, and if you could just raise your hand, and we'll go that. What is capitalism? What does capitalism mean to you? And if we could come back to the larger group, that would be ideal. Normally, I would do this with a Mentimeter, but I was unable to create that. So if we can come back, what does capitalism mean to y'all? And just it's not again, it's an invitation to just when you think of capitalism, what do you think about?
Control.
Control.
I took a natural resource economics class, and it was the first time I ever took an economics class and everything. And they talked about value exchanges, and I literally was like, my brain was very confused by a word that means something different to me than how it was being talked about. But it's like, and you were saying that we do the monkey see, monkey do. So somehow, somewhere along the way, value exchange got defined a certain way, and like, this is the way to do it. And then we just kept doing it, because that was the way we do it, I guess.
And then we'll come to you, Jack. Karen says a way for all of us to participate in the economy. Jack?
Oops. Yeah, I'm thinking that capitalism is basically an invention to make an economy so that the people who are wanting to control what's going on are allowed to do that.
Thank you, Jack.
In other words, it's a creation to allow the people who want to spend more time on creating control over the others and amass wealth. Yeah, it gives them that way to do it.
A way to amass wealth. Devane writes, and I love this, it's supposed to be a system or type of society where everyone is given an equal opportunity, right? And Devane is already predicting where I'm going, right? Because we have been taught a certain thing about capitalism as if it simply means market exchange, or Ingrid, as you talked about, like the exchange of goods and services and a value, as if that's capitalism. And I really, as a student of history and also as the co-coordinator of the U.S. Solidarity Economy Network, I want to actually share that if you go to any introduction to macroeconomic textbook, at least in the U.S., and you can do it as we go along, like, because we're all now carrying, on our, let's see, can't do it. On our little phones here, right? We carry more computing power than NASA had to put people on the moon, right? But you can follow along. If we'll go back, Ingrid, now to the deck, I want to walk through the classic definition. And by the way, this definition that we're going to look at on the screen is literally the definition that you'll find in virtually any introduction to macroeconomics. It's the same definition that Alan Greenspan would have, that it doesn't matter what your ideology is. So here are the 5 features of capitalism. The first is ownership, right? And ownership in the capital, and by the way, it takes all 5 of these characteristics to define it. As several of you already said in the chat, it takes all of these together. The private ownership of the means of production, what economists call the MOPS. And a mean of production is generally just like whether it's a factory or a farm, like what it is that it takes to produce the goods and services that you need, those are privately owned. The second feature of capitalism is what we call commodity production, or the idea that goods and services are produced in order to be bought and sold. That's, as Ingrid pointed out, the exchange value. The next part is that human labor itself. Human labor is not understood to be sacred in the divine spark. What Mary Oliver asked, what will you do with this one wild and precious life? Instead, under the capitalist system, labor is merely another commodity that is bought and sold on the market itself. The fourth characteristic is the motive is profit maximization. Everything around a capitalist economic system is presupposes that the only reason you do anything is to make money. And then the fifth characteristic is market allocation, that the markets decide how resources flow. And I hope that as I go through this, you can hear, oh, this is, wait a minute, don't go next.
Sorry. Sorry about that.
That's okay. So
there we go.
If we can come back together here, let's come back into a big group. Those are the 5 features of capitalism. And what I'm going to do is invite people to react, reflect, how is this landing for you? Did that make sense to you? Is there any pushback? Because this is really important, because as I've described those characteristics, I hope that even if whether you agree or disagree with them, you'll hear and recognize, oh, this is how the mainstream, this is how our culture tries to describe capitalism. Not as like that, it's the private ownership of the means of production. You produce things for exchange value, that the market handles it all. Is there any reaction or reflection to that core definition?
It brings up a little question in my mind, because like the market is this big, the market, and and like there's so many different ways that you hear about things like the market's doing this and that, and it's just this nebulous thing that's going on outside of the realm of my schema and lived like awareness. So I know it's really important to a lot of people, but
well, it's interesting, right? Because, and I see Karen, I'll just say Karen writes in, the market is not handling it all, with an exclamation point. And I see your hand, Matt. But before we go to Matt, Ingrid, like, it's interesting, right? Because sometimes they say the market and they mean the stock market. Other times they just mean the market is where goods and services are exchanged. But there's this kind of concept that says really the market is just where people's needs are expressed, and producers come and meet those needs. And I'm here to tell you that that is simply not true. That is the way that they attempt to articulate it. And Dwayne says most people feel like that is not true. Literally, as I was saying, it's not true. People intuit it because they understand that that's not really the case. The reality is, and I'm going to go to you next, Matt, but I want to say this. I will posit to you that when you understand all 5 of those characteristics and understand them as a system in place, it's literally the growth imperative. It is literally incentivizing the commodification of Mother Earth. It's why the capitalist looks at a forest, and instead of seeing an interconnected ecosystem teeming with life, they see board feet that can be reduced to lumber and then sold and turned into money, right? Like, and again, indigenous people always understood that forest, and they harvested trees to make buildings, to make canoes. They used the natural world, but in a balanced and appropriate way. They did not look at it and say, how can I as quickly as possible commodify this into money? It was, and again, the difference between commodity value, that you create commodities to sell at a profit, versus use value, which is to say, oh, we create the things that are useful and are necessary. And there is a profound difference in that worldview. Matt?
Kia ora. you pretty much covered what I was saying. But one, as you're doing, one thing I thought with the obfuscation of words and market, and we misinterpret it, and it's ambiguous. And then another one that hit me was the fractional reserve component to the capitalism, and I guess you're getting into the nuance. It's about being nuanced in the terminologies. Firstly, capitalism's an English word, and so that's the whole other thing. It's inside an ontological paradigm. But yeah, fractional reserve banking part of the capitalism has its own things in it. That's what triggered when you asked the question. But you nailed all the other things.
I'm glad you brought it up. I wasn't going to go into it, but now you've enticed me, invited me. I'll just say this very quickly. The first time that somebody tried to explain to me like the banking system and fractional reserve banking, I literally said, that cannot be true. What you're describing to me cannot be how money is actually operating. But Matt, what I have since learned with deep research and history, fractional reserve banking is a scam. And here's how it works. Banks actually create money as debt. And it basically goes like this. Under the current system, if I am the bank, I have, and let's make it super easy, I have $100,000 in reserve, like an actual money in the vault, right? But with that 100,000, I am literally allowed, for every 100,000 that I actually have as actual money, I can create, listen to this ratio, $1 million of debt. How? Because Matt comes to me and wants to borrow money for a house, and he has to give me, he has to give me a down payment. Then I issue a debt by way of mortgage. But that mortgage now is debt on the books. I've created money as the banker, right? It didn't exist before. Fractional reserve banking gives to the private banker the ability to control the money supply. And again, this is something that is outrageous. It is counterintuitive. The indigenous worldview would say this is insane. This doesn't make any sense. And that's the reason that we've created an insane structure. Because what I would say to you is this, and thank you, take only what you need. Gerald says, in reality, it's a dog-eat-dog world. And then Devane says the indigenous peoples lived on the mother's back, accepting the stewardship of their home. And that's the point. Capitalism, when you look at all 5 of those characteristics together, it incentivizes extraction. It incentivizes making as much money as you can as fast as you can. In macroeconomics terms, it was literally the idea of externalizing the costs. And somebody is asking in the chat, this is the solidarity economy session. So I'm not sure, Ingrid, if you or somebody else can help Ayata, who's asking about Irvin Laszlo. I do think you're in the wrong room. Ingrid,
it was
can
the
you help?
correct room, wrong time. So that was earlier today. If you look
Ayata,
on the World
yeah.
Unity Week website and check the schedule, most of the events are should be shown in your personal time zone. But if not, they're all initially posted in Eastern Standard Time so that we try to keep consistency. So no matter where people are at in the world, then they know how to reference this.
Go to World Unity Week Facebook page. The recording is there.
Yes.
Amashar has
That's a great
dropped
thing, Sean.
the schedule. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Oh, yep. I'm in Pacific time too. It's a little wonky, but you get used to it after a while.
Such is the challenge of organizing a World Unity Week. So congratulations to the organizers for such an ambitious offering. Again, the point is the capitalist economic framework literally is incentivizing commodification, the natural world, and it says it as if it's a good thing. And it gives you the illusion. And look, there's no doubt that it produces a lot of stuff, but it does a terrible job of imagining how to keep Mother Earth in balance. It does a terrible job of fairly distributing those things. That's the reason why the current system is literally failing the overwhelming majority of humans on the planet. And we in the Solidarity Economy Network say with kindness, and I see your hand, Joan, we say with kindness and with love, we have to overgrow this system, y'all. We're going to have to go to a post-capitalist economic system. Joan?
Yeah, going back to the characteristics, like a neighbor becomes the commodity. That is perhaps the main thing. We like going back to the home. What is the home? Because the home is also external home, but also internally. What is a home to us? Or that we return to wholeness. That is our home. So when we got wholeness, and then we have that, we'll just talk about safe place. That is the harbor where we can go to. And also that ownership, the ownership, because we can't own anything, really. If, like arbitrarily private ownership. So, like for the temporarily hold that some kind of resources there. That's stewardship. That's why indigenous people know that what is supposed to be.
So thank you for that, Joan. And again, I'm going to take this opportunity. We're about to go to the solidarity economy, but before we do, this idea of ownership is really important. If you notice, it was the ownership of the means of production, how you produce things, and the ownership of Mother Earth. I will just posit. It is insane to imagine owning, that's the Wiat River behind me where I live in far northern California and surrounded by forest. It is insane to imagine owning that. However, this is my pen. I can own this pen. This is my shirt. I can own this shirt. I want to encourage us to think, again, from economics perspective, we'd say the difference between personal property and the means of production are of Mother Earth. I do not believe it is ever appropriate to lay a claim to Mother Earth or to the things that we collectively need, as opposed to the personal property of the things that you own. And so with that, let's go to the next slide, please. So those are the features of capitalism. Now let's go to the solidarity economy. And just go to the next slide because we'll do the principles and values of the solidarity economy together. And look at these principles and compare them, as opposed to the competition that's inherent in the characteristics of capitalism. The solidarity economy is based on cooperation. And instead of the individual, it is committed to equity in all dimensions: race, gender, sexual orientation, geography. And equity is not the same as equality, but a fundamental sense of fairness. The third is a participatory decision making. In other words, it doesn't mean that I get my way. It means that if the decision affects my life, I ought to have an opportunity to help participate in that decision. The fourth principle is a commitment to sustainability, a recognition of the interconnectedness of life, and that we have to return to the balance, because at the end of the day, no matter what we're told about AI or technology or anything else, at the end of the day, only Mother Earth can actually create life. And that if we are destroying the life-giving Mother Earth herself and commodifying it faster than she can replenish herself, we are literally on a suicide death march. And the last principle is pluralism. And y'all, pluralism is so critical and key to us because pluralism says this: yes, we are a solidarity economy, and that means we're, quote, post capitalist. We want to evolve beyond capitalism. But that can look a lot of different ways. It's not prescriptive, it's not rigid and dogmatic. Not only what it will be, but how to get there. Again, as we say, we are post-capitalist, but there's no one right answer or one right path. Can we go back all together and have this conversation, please? And I'm going to, again, just invite folks to react to what you've heard, that compare and contrast. And Devane said, I believe that Chief Seattle made that point best. I don't know if it's apocryphal or not, but there's a very powerful quote that is attributed to Chief Seattle on this point. Any thoughts, reactions, reflections? Matt?
Got it. Yep, reaction, reflection. Yesterday, so we have a saying called titiro whakamurianga whakamua, which is look to the past to move to the future. So the post-capitalism and what you're saying, I believe, will be what we had prior. So in accordance with that that proverb. Yeah.
I love it. And you're breaking up just a bit for me, Matt, but I love to look to the past for the future. And this is literally what we in the solidarity economy movement say is we don't think that we're creating something new in EW. We're actually trying to create something that our ancestors knew, KNEW. The reality is that we are returning to the way we believe our natural state of being. To be fully human is to understand humans' responsibilities and our reciprocal responsibilities with the rest of life. Ingrid?
I'm gonna challenge a little bit what I think sometimes is that there is a difference between looking to the past as like, oh, it used to be so much better back then, because there's a lot of people that are very much in a mindset of, yesterday was better, or using past reference points. And we are moving into times that are unprecedented, and to lean into unknowns, having a reference point of hey, these are recognizing things, patterns at work, or pattern recognition, or I don't know how, like cause it, like really identifying correct cause effect relationships and synergies and things that are like in systems, and how things can can support the synchronicity of balance or throw things out of balance, or things like wisdom, I guess, is what I'm looking at, is like the ways of right relationship and good wisdom were based on following natural law, because you weren't inserting yourself in it like you're somehow separate from it. It's a recognition of what I'm doing as a part of an exchange system has ripple effects, and how far out do these ripple effects go? What are the If I'm a cause by something I do, there's an effect, and what happens? Being wise and learning and understanding how we are moving forward together, rather than driving forward and looking in the rearview mirror going, oh, I hope I, get where I want to go, looking at the past.
Well, thank you for that. And I definitely recognize that I don't want to look. It depends on where in the past you go. I mean, if we go back just a couple of hundred years ago, Africans were enslaved on this continent. Uh, the indigenous people were being subject to roundup and basically slaughter, right? Like so. To me, the question is not just looking back and romanticizing it. And I also want to say this, like, I don't romanticize like indigenous in the sense that I live in Wiyot ancestral territory, and some of my closest friends and mentors are Wiyot people. And I know some Wiyot people who are assholes who I stay away from, right? Guess what? Wiyot people are people, right? And what I'm getting at is, Ingrid, and I appreciate how you sort of said it, I'm encouraging us to think about an indigenous worldview that appreciates interconnectedness, that balance, and that what we're trying to return to was pre-settler colonialism, pre-heteropatriarchy, pre-capitalism, pre-enclosure. There is something that predates this. And remember, as humans, we existed, right? Humans were always building homes and we're always producing and distributing food. Like we were always managing the home, right? So what I'm trying to push us to is, and I see, let's go, Joan and then Lisa, a worldview. If we had an economic system based on balance and based on human needs getting met, that's what gets us into a solidarity economy framework. Joan, then Lisa.
In past, perhaps we are much more clear that we are producing that gadgets. And in future, it seems that it is a expression of our natural, organic, the intrinsic, some sort of type expressions comes through, which is the co-creation with the creator. And so how that can be really really mark that value easily. So that's a part is kind of like is feel like it's evolving how that economy would be look like.
Thank you, Joan. Lisa?
I think as long as we're all subject to a debt usury system, we're always going to be running behind. You never catch up. And it's designed to enslave and debt. And, and it's part of intuitively, I mean, it's part of a system designed to enslave and militarize. And, and there was trade on this earth for a very long time before this happened. So I'm sorry, I missed the beginning of your presentation. So you may have already gone over this as to whose idea this was and how everybody got trapped in it, and then how do we extract ourselves and everyone. But just my basically, as long as you have debt usury, everyone's always going to be behind.
I do not disagree, and we're going to go into the very concrete ways to get out of that next, after we hear from Matt.
So, just tracking back to Juliet's corridor, if you weren't involved, she talked about Divine Mother's milk and Divine Mother's milk coming to heal the planet. And I feel like, like just what the last speaker spoke to, who created this usury frame, but we operated on honor, truth, wisdom, Divine Mother's milk, the virtues, and they're not historic, they're universal, and they've been with us. So it's not the past, but that divine mother's milk to become the new trade system, which was the old trade system, sort of thing. Maybe.
And one of the things that I love, and we'll get into some very concrete things that can be happening now, so it's not merely poetic or vision, although we start from vision in the poetry. But at the end of the day, y'all, a matriarchal system does not mean female dominated, right? It means life affirming, and that there is a idea of the sacred feminine, but also the sacred masculine, and that there's room for two spirit as well. At the end of the day, it's not a gendered thing. It is, what is your proper role? What is our proper role as humans? And what is your role within the unit, right? Whether it's the human family, whether it's the smaller family, the extended family, or the village itself. And now let's Ingrid go. And I'm looking at the time, and I've just been informed I'm going to have to. I've got about 10 minutes left, so we're going to go quickly here to just conclude with the frame that I've given you is a post-capitalist frame. And now I want to point out what you're looking at is a table of actual concrete economic activities in modern parlance, right? These are the things that are happening right now. And for an economist, they'd look at, all right, how are things produced? How are things distributed and exchanged, Ingrid, just as you talked about in your natural economics course? Then how are things consumed or used? How are things financed? And then governance means, how is the system regulated and governing itself? And what you're looking at now is, rather than a capitalist framework, I want to point out what is already happening across Mother Earth, not just Turtle Island, but across the entire planet. These things still exist. And again, let's look at production. There are worker-owned cooperatives. Those are businesses that are actually owned by the workers. But there are also producer cooperatives, especially around food production. There are so many farmer producer co-ops. But there are also volunteer activities and volunteer collectives. There are community gardens. There are self-employed collectives. And then the most important, I think, and the largest is the unpaid care work. In this society, it's almost all gendered, right? But the reality is that unpaid care work, which is usually done by women for the social reproduction of society itself, that is already happening now on the production end. Then if we look at the distribution and exchange, by that we mean, okay, if something is being produced as a good or service, how does it find its way if it's not just bought and paid for? Well, there can be fair trade networks that specifically say, we're going to ask, do the people who are producing and working on it get paid a fair and living wage? But in addition to that, there's something called community-supported agriculture, where instead of buying individual carrots and individual heads of lettuce, you partner with the farmer in advance and pay an amount to get a share of the crop. There's local community currency projects and time banks. There's already existing free cycle and barter networks. I could go down each of these, but the point I'm making, y'all, is these already exist, but they are mostly disparate, right? They're happening in individual places. My invitation and challenge to you at World Unity Week is to look for in your own community examples of credit unions, co-housing opportunities. What I'm saying is we have to find examples of these and support them and get off of the debt system and get into the life affirming way of having our needs met together. And we can't just in one step go from what we have now to what we want, but what we can do is take the incremental steps of finding ways of recreating this society. And so if any of this has made sense to you, has inspired you, if we could come back together, Ingrid, because again, my wife is letting me know that I'm needed, so I'm going to have to close this out earlier than I thought. But I want to say this. already this new system exists, but it's in small pockets. So it's not systemic yet, right? It's not system wide. What you have is a housing cooperative here. You have a basic income project there. You have a credit union that's separate from everything else. What I'm inviting World Unity Week to ask, how can we add those so that the total becomes greater than the mere sum of the parts? How do we cross-pollinate ourselves and live into that new world? Because I'll end it, my part, we'll do a final go around. I see your hand, Lisa. When I began, I said I was a revolutionary, but I was a peaceful revolutionary. And by that, I mean, I believe that we can live our way in to a return to the balance that existed before. We don't have to merely romanticize the past. We have to have our guiding point that we want ecological balance, sustained, just systems, and then we have to live into that world. And there are already examples of that, but you just have to look for them. So I'm going to invite people for any closing thoughts. Lisa, I saw your hand go up, so we'll start with you and anybody else who wants to close us out.
Well, I don't know if you discussed, and I'm sitting here on the Zoom next to Joan, who's from a, as far as I understand, from a communist country and communal. I mean, I know there's problems, but we're trained to demonize communism, communalism, the red road. And I just, it's like so much energy has gone into demonizing communism that it's really difficult to even explore what beneficial aspects are actually operating across the globe right now from people who may be looking at the good of the whole versus, empowering the individual entrepreneur, which seems to come out of the royal private class. So anyway, just, I know that's.
I'll just say this,
discussion.
Lisa, I think it's worth asking ourselves, why do the predatory class and the ruling elite spend so much time, energy, and money demonizing a system? There's a reason for that. Like there's nothing more dangerous than a lived experiment. And I will just say, if you want to take a look at Cuba and what they were able to do for their people by collectivizing the process. So, you will never hear me criticizing the Red Road, ever. Jack?
Yeah, what I'm want to point out here. Well, can you hear me? Wait a minute.
Yes.
Okay. What I want to point out to the people who are here is that I've known David for a long time, and I've been following the solidarity economy as a whole for a long time. I've also been in this community of World Unity Week, of Unity Earth, and the various other organizations like One World who are putting this out. And I know because I talked to a lot of these people, that very few people in these networks that we are a part of, the people who are here are a part of, know anything about the solidarity economy. And what I'm saying is that I totally support what David is saying about we need to create the alternative to the capitalist system. So I guess the bottom line here is I am hoping that all the people here who have learned about what the solidarity economy is, because I don't think most of you did, is please go out to your networks, to the people that you travel with and the people that you know in your organizations, and let them know what you heard here today, because we really need to get what David is talking about out to a much, much, much larger community. And we have a community that we're a part of that knows almost nothing about it.
So thank you for that, Jack. And I want to thank also Shyla, who asked to post a link to learn more about the solidarity economy. I just posted a link to a an essay that Emily Kawano, my co-coordinator, and I co-authored called How to Build a Solidarity Economy, The Logic of Non-Reformist Reforms. And I'll end by, again, Jack, thank you for the very clear call for folks to learn more. If you are interested, go to ussen.org. That's the website, and I'll put that in as well. That's the U.S. Solidarity Economy website. And if you are interested in learning more, reach out to us, and we'd be happy to continue this conversation and others. With that, I want to again end by thanking Jack for the personal invitation for me to make or to apply to make this offering. I want to thank the World Unity Week for organizing this time together. But frankly, more importantly, I want to thank you, whoever is listening to this recording or who are watching us live or are here now, because you put this forward and you put your time, energy, and intention into that. And with that, I do see Shonda has raised their hand, so you can have the final word, Shonda.
Thank you, brother. It's been an extremely intriguing conversation. Thank you for being with us.
Bye, y'all. Thanks again.
Thank you
Thank you
so
so much for your help, Ingrid.
Thank you. You're
Bye, y'all.
welcome. Very cool. And Ben, I was just actually, Ben Bowler just came in, who is, and I'm not sure if he is actually available to talk, but wanted you to connect the dots between who Ben is and the World Unity Week event, but he's apparently not be able to come off of his video right now. So,
Okay.
all right, thank you
I gotta
so much,
jump, y'all. My
David.
wife is calling me,
Yes.
so much love to you all.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
David.
Shonda, would you like to do me to do a one of the
Sister, I think it's
transferences?
time to, I think we're supposed to take stream down to
Okay.
mark on demand.
All right then. Thank you everybody for joining us.
Okay.
All right, I have some transformances that we can share, or actually, you know, it's really interesting. He had breakout session planned to go into groups and to talk about things. And I'll
Sister,
just
I
go
think
ahead and
we're just supposed to take the stream down.
oh, I thought you did.
No, your host, sister, you have to take it
Oh,
down.
that's right. You are so right. My mistake. Um, we are all learning and growing together here. I do want to share then to close it out that some questions for us that he was going to have the breakout session and discuss that I think are really good questions to contemplate. So I'm going to put it up on the screen and we will close out with that as a way of contemplating some questions that that we can take a little bit of a deeper dive and hopefully take next steps individually or collectively. And ways that we can do that collectively is through the missions that are happening in oneworld.earth as we are collaborating and cooperating and co-creating together. The compassion games that are happening is compassion games is survival of the kindest. And here we are going over the next 99 days of peace and unity to be moving forward towards Peace Week, which will be coming up in September, to get involved with if you are in place where you're at or as a part of the One World.Earth and Unity Earth and World Unity Week communities. Let's team up together and see what we can do. Thanks for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.